Welcome csc103 class to our updated rock, paper, scissors starting with fall 2019. This video will cover the reset button that'll be used if I do this real quick and eventually we win 3. It disables these buttons and then we have a reset button, and it also has a message that says game over, you win. If you lose, it'll say game over, you lose, I guess. I'll double check these just to make sure what they say. It'll start over again and you could play again. So it's a way to kind of play the game again. So what we're going to do here, I'll copy some of these variables here and I'll just go back to the one I was working on, and let me stretch this out. And we had everything was working here with our buttons, and we'll keep all our variables together here. And there's 2 variables. I'm just going to paste them, and we have one called mess. Now, we do have an ID called mess, but we can have a variable called mess as well. And it says document.getElementById, and this should actually be mess because we used the ID of mess. And all that's doing is just kind of making a little shortcut so that we can call this ID, or we can identify that ID or get it, as JavaScript says. And it can just shorten the way we write things. So then we don't have to write document.get. We could just say mess dot, because this will be basically taken care of by mess. And then also we have a thing called C points and a variable called Y points. I shouldn't say a thing. A variable C points, a variable Y points. It doesn't matter what order these are in. And they're starting off with 0. So they're kind of initializing at 0. And we're going to add to these basically when we run our function, so that if you win, you get a point. If you lose, computer gets a point. And then whoever gets to 3 first or 2 first or whatever you want to use, then that'll be set up so that we can make something happen based on getting to that number. So let's open these up again. We're going to open up these functions again. So we have these variables here. And again, what are we going to do with this? We're basically going to add a point. So if we win, we get a Y point. So we already have these things set up for winning. So I'm going to go under here. So if we win, I'm just going to say Y points equals, and I'm going to say Y points again, and I'm going to say +1. Now we can shorten this by doing something that says plus equals 1, but I'll put it like this just so you understand the way it's working. So it's just adding 1 to itself, and that's if you win. If you lose, down here, these will be C points, because computer will get points. So they'll get points added to 0 initially. And then I'll copy this, and then they could be in each function. So I'll paste these in each function. I'll go back to this one. Whenever I win, I get Y points. And whenever we lose, the C points gets put in there. So whenever it's colored red, C points, we'll get them. So I'll make sure I go to 3 functions. And if you lose, C points gets points. And then also for the scissors, if we lose, C points gets points. No points for ties. Okay, so those are our points just getting added. We're not doing anything yet, but we will do something when they get added up. We're going to have to make a conditional statement that says if points get to 3, then something's going to happen. And what we're going to do is just create another function to do that. So I'm going to close up my functions just so I can see better here. I'm going to close up my 3 functions, and I'm going to create another function, and I'm just going to call it checkpoints. And we'll put our curly braces in here. And then what's going to happen, basically when we get to 3 points, the game will stop. So let's see what happens here when we get to points. So what we're going to say here, we're going to say if, and then in parentheses, we're going to put our condition. We're going to say if, well, let's start with Y. We'll say if Y points equals 3, we'll use 3. And we have to put another set of curly braces here inside here. And what's going to happen? Well, it's going to say game over, you win. Now, it's not just going to say that, we have to put it somewhere. What we're going to do here is we're going to say mess dot inner HTML. Because remember, we're using that variable. So we could just say mess dot equals. And then we're going to put this whole thing in quotes. And I'll put a semicolon here. So what we're going to do next is color it a certain way. So I can go here and say mess dot style, because we're styling the same thing, dot color, and we're going to say the color will equal green. That's if we get to a certain point. Now other things are going to happen, but let's just start off with that. And then the other condition is going to be we can just say if. We can have two ifs, and we can have if C equals 3, the color will be red because it'll tell you you lost, and we could just say you lost. And that'll be enough just knowing we lost. So that's what's going to happen. So we just have a function that's going to do that. And we can see if that works first. So you might say, well, when are we going to do this? Well, the checkpoints is basically going to run every time after we run the function. So, but it's going to be inside the function. So what we're going to do here is let's look at our first function. Let's look at our PickRock. We'll open that up. And basically, if it's scissors, we got points. Now before the function's over, right before it's over, so right before the function's ending, and you could even put a space here, we're going to run checkpoints. And we could put a semicolon here. So we're going to run checkpoints. And then we're going to run it after each function. So we're going to copy this, and we're going to run it after the paper function. Remember, it's after here. So we're putting it on a line in between. You could put it right here, but that's fine right there. And then after the pick scissors, we're going to put that down here too. We're going to put it in between. So before the function ends, it's going to check points. And if it gets to a certain number, it's going to display that. So let's just see if this works so far without any reset buttons or anything. So, okay, rock. Okay, let's just try to keep track. All right, I lost. So it's 0, 1. I hit again, I think it's 0, 2. I won, it's 1, 2. I lost. Game over, you lost, because that's 3 times. Now when I click and nothing happens, that means it's doing the same thing. So game over, you lost. Now what we are going to do when you lose is we're going to have a reset button, and these will get disabled. So we do have a method called disable that will be able to disable those buttons, or a state of buttons that can be disabled. That's why we have ID names on them so that we can identify them: rock button, paper button, and scissors button. So we do have ID names for those. So that's how we'll identify them. So let's try this and see if we can. First of all, we need a reset button, but let's try to do this without a reset button. Let's try to say if we win, we'll reset these buttons, or we'll disable the buttons. So we can say get element by ID document. We'll have to do the whole thing because we don't have a shortcut for this one, but we'll do .get element by ID. We don't have that mess shortcut. And the ID is going to be, let's start off with rock btn, and we're going to say, let's see, if it's going to be disabled, it is not a style, it's just disabled. It's just a state. It's not a CSS. It's JavaScript. So we're just going to say disabled. And we're going to say equals, and I think it's true, and that's it's lowercase true, so we're going to say true. So we're going to just disable that, and that's if we win, and we're going to disable it no matter what. Even if we lose, we're going to disable. So let's just try this. Let's just disable the rock and see if that happens, whether we win or lose. So we'll just try that out. We'll put that here. I'll put a semicolon. Now this button will be disabled. So let's save this, and let's just try rock and see what happens. Okay, we lost. It's 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. Rock's disabled. See, it's kind of gray, or it's hard to see here, but it's gray. So that works. So that's disabled. So we know it's working. So we're going to copy this, and we're going to disable all the buttons. So I'm just going to disable all 3 here, and this is going to be paper. And then I can just copy all 3 now, since I don't want to type them again. Just replace this one here. So everything's going to be disabled, whether you win or lose. So win or lose, they'll be disabled. So these will be disabled, so we know they're disabled. And what we're going to do is we're going to enable a reset button. And I'm just going to copy this here. And you might say, we don't have a reset button. I know we don't, but we will. But I'm just going to put it in here because we don't have it yet. And I'll say, instead of disabled, I'm just going to put a style dot opacity. We did that with Patrick. And I'll say equals 1. That means it's going to display a reset button once the game's over. So we're going to display a reset button. And I'll put one down here. Now we don't have a reset button. Now let's make one. Now I have to go back up to my HTML. Now where would my reset button go? It would be right next to my other buttons. So I'm just going to copy this other button. and call it reset, lowercase. Give it a label of reset. We'll give it a function of reset. Even though we don't have a function yet of reset, we will, because that's what it'll do. But now we have a button reset. Now we don't want it to show up right now. We could turn its opacity down. We could do that with CSS, or we could do it with JavaScript. Let's do it with JavaScript. Let's go up here, and at the beginning of our variables, we'll just put it with our variables. I'll put another statement here, and I'll say document dot element by ID, and it's going to be reset btn, and we're going to say style.opacity, and we're going to say equals 0, and it should go away. There, it's gone. We use JavaScript to make it go away, which we can do. We could have used our CSS as well. So we made that go away. So we don't have it, but it's going to show up now that we have this checkpoints. It's going to show up once the game is disabled. Once the other buttons are disabled, they're going to make them show up. And if you could figure out what's going to happen now when we reset's going to do a couple things. And we're just going to have one function, and reset's going to run it, and reset is going to make them be enabled again. And it'll also make these things disappear, make those images disappear that are up in our, when we hit a button to pick rock or anything, where those two messages are going to disappear. So we could just make them equal to nothing. So let's just see if this works first. We're going to hit rock. Okay, 1 0, 1 1, 1 2, 2 2. We lost. These are all disabled. That's what we want. And now this is showing up. And what we're going to do is make this go away again, and then make these be enabled. So how do we do that? We do it with a function. So this function is working. So let's make one more function down here and call it reset, because we already said it was going to be reset. So we have to say function reset, and we'll use our curly braces. And what's going to happen when we reset? Well, a couple of things. One is when we reset, the button's going to go away again. So let's just copy this thing here. The reset button's going to go away. So that's one thing that's going to happen when we reset. That's going to go away. And we'll make it 0. It'll go back to the way it was with 0. So it'll hide that again. It'll hide the reset button once we reset. So it'll make itself go away. And then I'm going to copy these buttons too. And what's going to happen with those buttons, that should be easy to figure out. They're all going to be disabled equals false. So they won't be disabled anymore. So we're going to change these things to false. So they're now enabled. They don't have enabled. It's just disabled is false, I believe. And make sure that I have false spelled correctly. So now they're going to display. They're going to be enabled so you can click on them. Okay, so now we're going to hide our thing again, and that's going to go there with our reset. And then what also is going to happen, let's see, we're going to make our mess be nothing. We're going to make that go away. So we could make our mess say nothing. I don't think the color matters, unless we got to make it black. I don't think it matters. So we could just say mess equals nothing. That's an empty string, so it should say nothing. And I don't think the color matters. And then also we can copy these things from any of these. I could just copy these two statements. Our Y choice, we're going to make them be empty. Reset, we're also going to make our images be empty. And it doesn't matter which order these are in, but these to be empty, they're just going to get quotes. And I'm just putting quotes and then deleting what's inside the quotes. I know sometimes quotes can be tricky, so I'll just hit delete. So they're empty, and that's empty. So everything's empty there when we hit reset. Now, one thing we didn't do yet, or maybe we did. Yes, we did. We already have our onClick equals reset, so we're already running that function. So we kind of took this in order here. So now let's see what happens. Okay, 0, 1. 0, 2. Game over, I lost. And now these things, I can't do this anymore. The only thing I can do is reset. Let's see what happens when I reset. They all go away, and these are active. So that's exactly what we want. So let's try again with these. Now this one says, I just clicked on paper. It says game over, you lost. Now let's see why that is. Let's check our checkpoints. Oh, I know what it is. We didn't reset our points to 0. Make sure we got to set our points to 0. So we can also do C points, because there's 0, that's not inside the function. So we're going to say, It's not local inside the function. So it stays whatever it was since we were redefining it. So we're just going to say c points equals 0 and y points equals 0. That should take care of that. It's a good thing we checked. So we're going to reset our y points and back to 0. So we got to reset our score here too. That's one thing we forgot. So we'll save it and we'll see if that works. Let's go. Okay, 0-1, 1-1, 2-1. Computer wins, paper covers rock. We still got to go here. So we're at 2-2. Game over, you lost. 3-2. Let's reset. And that's good. Let's try paper. Okay, 1-0. 1-1. Game over, you lost. That seems like it came too quick. I'm not sure. Let me try that again. Okay. Okay, 1-0. 2-0. 3-0. Game over. That works. Let me try it one more time because I thought something happened when I lost it. It came too quick. 0-1. 1-1. 1-2. Game over, you lost. So that works okay. And let's just try scissors. 0-1. 0-2. 1-2. 2-2. 3-2. And there's our reset. So it looks like everything's working. So that's it. This is our reset function. If you need to check it out, it turned all the buttons back, enabled, or disabled equals false. It set the opacity of the reset button so you don't see it anymore. It also wiped out our image areas, our Y choice and C choice div areas to nothing. It wiped out our message to nothing, and it also reset the point. So we had to do all that with reset, and that's all happening with just one button. And then also we had this checkpoints that we have being called every time we win. Every time somebody wins, we check the points to know if we should stop the game or not. We just have to make sure that it doesn't get to 3. Once it gets to 3, then this stuff happens. So once we get to Y points or C points gets to 3, and notice we just have 2 ifs here, and that's okay because it's just going to look for those 2 situations. Then it's going to disable the buttons. It's going to enable or make the reset button visible, and then we'll be able to click on it. So that's the button part of that. So that's a little more detailed. Not everybody got to that in class. Some people wanted to try that in class, but I just wanted to make sure I had a video that covered that in case you were feeling motivated to try that out. So that's the rock, paper, scissors with the reset button.